team. Give it everything you got.
You don't know what I've seen. We all need to run.
You must face them. Fight them.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perrone, and today we are continuing with our reviews and even second views at Star Wars The Force Awakens. We have our two co-hosts chiming in on how they felt about Star Wars The Force Awakens. First up, I have Steve Vivona, and he tells us about his initial viewing of the film, which was another one of his very highly anticipated ones. And afterwards, I have another conversation with James, and we'll kind of look at it as a second viewing to see if our opinions have changed or morphed at all in any shape or form, because I know a lot of people, especially the diehard fans, seem to have different reactions depending on how many times they're seeing the film. So let's start right at the top with Steve Vivona. All right, Steve, so you watched the movie.
I did.
I know how, the anticipation level was with you about it, and I know a lot of people had anticipation about, what they thought it was going to be like, and are they going to have a similar reaction to Phantom Menace? All the hype,
Right.
all the hype, and then you're like, oh, let's see what happens. Yeah. The floor is yours. How did you feel about it?
Well, I loved it. I mean, in a nutshell, I loved it. I do see a lot of people criticizing it for being somewhat... the word is derivative of A New Hope, and I get that. I definitely saw it as I was watching the film, but I'll be completely honest with you, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me in the slightest. I didn't so much feel that it was a lack of originality as I felt that it was somebody, Disney or Kathleen Kennedy or somebody, was telling J.J. Abrams and maybe Lawrence Kasdan that what we needed to do here with Episode 7 was to bring Star Wars back to the baseline, back to zero, because you had a lot of people, myself included, who were very disenchanted with the prequels. This was an opportunity to sort of nab those people and their children, even if their children like the prequels, they could say to them, okay, we're giving you exactly what you want. And maybe for some people, it was a little too close to A New Hope. And like I said, I get it, but quite frankly, I didn't care. I was in heaven.
How did you feel about the actors?
Okay, I liked very much Daisy Ridley as Rey. I liked Oscar Isaac a lot. I think he was sort of maybe the successor to Harrison Ford as the dashing pilot type, but he didn't have a lot to do. I actually liked Adam Driver very much. A lot of people had their issues with him, but I had no problem with him. If anybody I had a problem with, it was probably John Boyega as Finn. I didn't love the character of Finn. I kind of felt he was a little too yippy, boisterous, comic reliefy.
Too much Luke Skywalker?
Yeah, well, I didn't mind Luke Skywalker so much as I minded him. I actually love Luke Skywalker, even in his, young, whiny,
his whiny
mode. But yeah, he was the one I didn't like. And the original actors, I thought Harrison, I thought Han Solo was just brilliant. Having Lawrence Kasdan, write him was just the smartest move they could have ever made, and I felt like almost every word, every line of dialogue out of his mouth, I'm seeing Lawrence Kasdan writing it, and I just was just so tickled. I didn't feel as though Carrie Fisher had a heck of a lot to do as Leia, but she was good. Thought her performance was, for what we saw of her, which was much kind of an extended cameo, was good. And Mark Hamill, we saw him for 2 minutes,
if you're lucky.
Yeah, which disappointed me. I was knowing we should tell everybody that I knew just about everything going into I spoiled the heck out of myself. Probably the only person that you've spoken to who did do that. So I knew that Luke was not going to figure into the story much. I mean, he's the overriding reason for the plot, but you're not going to see him much. And I would have just liked to have had like a 5-minute scene of dialogue that kind of bummed me out. Yeah. But I saw the point, and I'm hoping that,
cliffhanger, literally.
Cliffhanger, I'm hoping 8 and 9, he's got a really juicy, meaty role, especially now.
Were you okay with the manner in which Han Solo's fate went?
Yeah, I was okay with it. I saw that coming, again, even knowing that it was going to happen. I felt it had a certain weight and dramatic aspect to it. Had he gone out, just fighting or, how else? I felt like this event is going to resonate throughout the rest of the saga. I don't know how things are going to play themselves out with Kylo Ren, but, I thought it was a very emotionally charged moment. I was even knowing it was coming, I was like really, really, stunned, hurt, however you want to put it, to see this character that we love die. But no, in terms of the way he went out, no, I was okay with it.
How many times did you see the movie so far?
I've only seen it once.
Oh, I saw it twice. I mean, I know a lot of people seem to have the opinion, and I kind of agree, is that the first time I watched it, I was so not just hyped up, but I was looking for things. I wasn't paying too much attention because I was looking at every little detail too much, that certain things kind of flew by too fast. I saw it a second time, and I was able to kind of enjoy the story and kind of relax and not nitpick every little move. And granted, we are going to nitpick this movie forever because that's what we do. We do them with the original trilogy, with the prequels, because we want to explore, and we not only that, but we want to memorize the lines, and we want to have a visual image of every little thing that ever happened in the movie. Because we have to kind of recall that and then regurgitate it back out to people. Yeah. And it's very difficult to do that after one viewing.
Sure. And I have to admit, I'd love to see it again. I'm hoping, I'm sure when I get the Blu-ray, I'll watch it every day or whenever I get a copy of it.
Did you see it on 3D or in IMAX?
I saw it in IMAX 3D, which, again, it was just a matter of convenience. I was happy to see it in IMAX. I didn't care about the 3D. I had the opposite reaction to you as I was watching the movie. I was so sucked in. There were things I wasn't paying attention to, and I would have liked there to be a little bit more sort of exposition and backstory that we didn't get. But I was so taken in by just how happy I was that I was enjoying this movie after the prequels that I was not, I have to admit, not looking at it with the most critical eye or the most, I didn't have it under a microscope as I probably will in future viewings.
Did anything bother you that you would say, oh, it's J.J. Abrams, or why does J.J. always do this, or anything like that?
No, and
I know how critical you are of J.J.
Well, it's a thing, I've said this to other people about J.J. I felt like as much as I hate his Star Trek, I blame him less for Star Trek and more Kurtzman and Orci for what they've done. I feel like, he had a hand in it and also sort of a lack of fundamental understanding of it. I felt like in this film with Star Wars, I felt like I don't think Abrams is a great filmmaker. I think he's a great mimic. I think he's I don't think he's the next Spielberg. I think he's a good Spielberg copier or a Lucas copier, whatever you want to call him. I think he can do what he loves. He can sort of ape what he loves. And I think with Star Wars, he had such a huge emotional connection to it that, again, he was going to deliver what the fans wanted because, and he himself is a huge fan. So, and bringing in Lawrence Kasdan and all that other stuff, like I said at the outset, that I think, his job was to make us feel like, we were kids again watching the original trilogy. So I have really no complaints about his direction, the script. Again, as time wears on and I see it more, maybe that'll be the case. But I was, I was just one of those happy ones that, just... I was so along for the ride that, whatever little things did bother me just weren't that important.
I know I wanted more in terms of time, and maybe it's because of the abrupt ending and the lack of Luke lines. It's like I wanted another 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I could have done with definitely a little bit more breathing room. I thought it was so action-packed that they were jumping from one big action piece to another with not a lot of, sort of breathing room and dialogue. And I definitely could have used more of that.
And there were a lot of characters I wish they would have explored more. Like, I want to know more about this one or that one or that,
exactly.
The other.
And you know what? I just feel as though, they were saying to themselves, well, we have to leave them wanting more. And,
well,
you
congratulations, you did.
Yeah, you succeeded. You got, in terms of Kylo Ren, that was a big reveal. That was a huge reveal. So they, but who is Rey? Who is Snoke? Who is, is...
and if you go on the internet, especially on Facebook, you're going to just lose your mind. There's so many fan theories going out there. And there's the deleted scenes, the list of all the deleted scenes. And it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to see these deleted scenes. I can't wait for the Blu-ray. Speaking of Blu-ray, you can pre-order it already, believe it or not.
Yeah. But I want to read the script.
Yes, I want to read the book. The book, I think, came out...
Yeah, well, a mutual friend of ours has already read it.
Oh,
and
the
already
ebook.
sort of delivered his report in terms of what things that cleared up.
Yeah.
And like all huge fans, we're just chomping at the bit for any crumb of new information. Now, again, as we approach episode 8, those things that we're sort of trying to find out now become spoilers for the next movie. So,
and even before that, we're going to get hit with Rogue One, so that's going to be another one. Which I'm hoping, and I have a feeling it's going to be a darker kind of film.
Yeah, it's going to be a darker film. It's going to be a heist film.
Yep.
Maybe I've heard it compared to The Guns of Navarone. I'm completely psyched for that.
That'd be great.
Just the thought of Vader possibly being the main protagonist is just, I'm like a dog salivating at the thought of it.
I'm holding the peanut butter cup and you're salivating already.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for your very inspiring thoughts on Star Wars. And I'm sure this isn't the end of it, because I know that little by little, as more information comes out, because I think the way Disney is kind of crafting some of this information, they're going to be releasing it a little bit at a time in terms of comic books and this and that. So they're going to kind of drip it out, little by little, because they know that the super fans like us are just, like you said, salivating for more.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
No, my pleasure.
All right, let's switch gears now and go to James as we talk about some of our second and even third viewings. So, James, how you doing?
Hello.
Well, why don't you start off with telling us how did it go the second time around?
Well, this time I was in L.A. and I had a quiet night.
Okay.
So I went to a theater, not IMAX, but 3D, perfect seats right in the front. Everything was even better than the first night I saw it.
Now, can you just remind us, last time 3D or was this the first 3D?
Nope. The first night I went on the 17th, I guess. Was that the opening night,
yes,
if I recall?
Yes.
And I saw it in IMAX in New York City, a fantastic theater, and IMAX 3D. But as much fun as it was, my seats weren't perfect because it was a big crowd night and I had to be slightly to the right of center.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that affected it, but I think psychologically it might have. But besides all that, these seats were perfect, exactly how I wanted to have a film experience. The crowd was small. There was, probably only a handful, maybe 20 people in the theater. But aside from that, I saw it again. I had an open mind. Enough time had passed. Obviously, we've read almost everything that's been out online, things to look for that I might have missed. We've read about stuff that didn't make the movie, cut scenes, stuff from the books. We got to read things from the encyclopedias and the cutout books and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a lot more information, obviously, this time, which I guess made me feel a little better. However, I didn't like it anymore or hate it. I guess I should say it this way. I didn't like it any less or hate it anymore. That might sound a little better.
Okay.
Everything I laughed at the first time, I still laughed at again. And mostly my favorite stuff was the Han and Chewie interactions. I still love the new characters. I love the interaction between Poe and Finn. I loved Rey. I loved Rey's interaction with Han and Chewie, and BB-8 was still my favorite droid now, which once again, I'll reiterate that I had to eat my hat on that one because I thought at first sight he was ridiculous, but now love him. Can't imagine him not being there. So as far as the movie itself goes, it's for me, one of those things that I have issues, obviously, now we can talk freely about it. I have issues with the Han Solo having to be sacrificed up, and I haven't heard officially whether that was a Harrison Ford thing or that was a plan all along, and it just happened to go along with what he had originally wanted back in the day. And there's other things in the movie, and I'm not going to get too specific because I don't want to be a downer, but the JJ-isms, the things that he does are not always my cup of tea. He has a good way of making movies that make them very exciting in trailers. They even make them in small doses fantastic. But when you break them down, you say, why is that happening? Why would they make that choice? Why would they do that, whatever it is? I think that's what just bothers me about this movie. It's not my Star Wars. And I say it fits in. A lot of people say, "Oh, where does it fit in? What did you think? Is it better? Is it worse? I say it fits in exactly in the middle." And I'm even going to go so far as to say maybe even parts of the prequels are a little better to me. We mentioned it briefly. The music, there's nothing in this except for two cuts. Parts of the Scavenger, it's called, and then the ending where she's basically on her mission to find Luke in the end of the movie. Those are the only things that I love listening over and over again. But to me, the rest of the soundtrack is a little weak. There's nothing so bold as the Imperial March or the Asteroid Chase or that kind of stuff. Even the stuff in Jedi is much more dramatic and memorable. And I'm disappointed. And I think you've mentioned it. I don't know how you feel about it, how many times you've listened to the soundtrack, but there's nothing that I can point to and just say, man, that is fantastic, other than those two cuts that I mentioned. It's really, to me, one of John Williams' weakest scores of any of the stuff I've listened to, as far back even as Lost in Space stuff that I've downloaded from various different places. It just doesn't do anything for me. It's just not memorable. I've been doing a lot of listening to older Star Wars stuff. I've been doing a lot of listening to older Star Trek soundtracks because of something we want to work on. And there's just nothing in this that I would say you got to have that in your collection other than those two cuts I mentioned.
Yeah, I stick to the original statement that the only memorable theme that I heard, that if you were to play it now, I think it's called Rey's theme, which you mentioned, I think.
Yeah,
the
basically it's when
theme.
she was spelunking or whatever they call it through the and the sliding down the sand dune.
And that's it's very musical, very whimsical, and it's very John Williams-ish. But unless you're playing traditional Star Wars themes, the Star Wars theme, or, that kind of stuff, I couldn't tell you what, that this came from this soundtrack. That's the only one I recognize.
Even the theme sounds to me now, I've listened to the theme, I've listened to this music, I'm sure you guys all have. The theme sounds kind of hollow compared to what the richness of the initial score, even when it was in mono, if you didn't see it in a stereo theater. And then as far as more recent stuff, there's just something missing. And that might be me psychologically, again, snobbishly saying it's not the London Symphony Orchestra, because it wasn't this time. So who knows? But it's just not my favorite. To move on now to the effects, most of the effects are pretty exciting. I think to tie in with the music, somebody should try to tie in the asteroid chase music with the Falcon flying through the Star Destroyer in this one, and I think that would make that scene unbelievably exciting, even though that's a scene that I like. I do love the way that looked, and I like some of the X-Wing attacks and stuff. The thing I still noticed, I thought maybe because of the 3D or some other kind of fluke, the Falcon taking off for the first time still looks very fake to me. Bouncing off some of the buildings and knocking down the arch of the city, that kind of felt a little fake to me. Again, that's just the way the CGI in that particular scene looked, but it just seemed unrealistic, the way she's banging the Falcon around, ready to take off. Wouldn't things be breaking? These ships are tough, I'm sure, but, knocking into all that stuff, I'm sure something would break. That's just a little side note. What else did I notice? Kylo is okay. The more we know about him, I know I had an issue with him at first, thinking he was lightweight, thinking he was wussy, whatever other words I used, I don't know. I'm not overwhelmed by the power of the dark side at this point, and I think it comes down to I am tired, and this goes everything that I watch lately. Doctor Who, things I don't watch, Walking Dead. What's that other one? The one with the dragons and stuff like that.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. You have to watch every one of these episodes with a fine-tooth comb and a Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass to see something that might show up 2 years from now that meant something important. And of course, and then there's people on the web, of course you knew that was going to happen because you know, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Every Doctor Who episode now has to tie into this arc. Every series TV show has to tie into this over arc story. You know, it's got to tie in. He's wearing a different jacket today. Why is that? And I'm tired of that stuff. When you saw Star Wars A New Hope for the first time, which essentially this is a movie reintroducing all these characters and these worlds to new audience as well as us, the old audience. But we've got to sit there still. Who is Rey? Who's her family? Where is she? What is all that? Who is Snoke? What's the mystery for that? Who is Lor San Tekka? Or who is this? And I am tired of all that nonsense already. I want to see a movie with a beginning, middle, and end for a change. And then you can lure me in. If Star Wars A New Hope ended the way The Empire Strikes Back did, I'm not sure everybody would have been as enamored with it. And we'll never know. But the fact that Star Wars had good guys, bad guys, a pretty easy to follow story, and a finale with a nice celebration at the end that you know, yeah, they won that battle. Whatever it is, if you never saw another Star Wars movie other than A New Hope, you can say, that was great, I saw it, and they won. And you had a happy ending or a good ending. Now, that's not to say I'm a big fan of happy endings. I love the ending of Empire Strikes Back. I love, some of these darker European movies, things like that. But, man, I'm just tired of having to figure out for the next couple years who this is and who that is. Just give me a movie, and then there can be intrigue. There can be, oh, wow, that guy's mysterious. I wonder how it turns out for him. But it doesn't have to be so many pieces. And that's where I guess I've outgrown all that crap. I just kind of want to see a movie and have fun. And if I don't think about this movie, then I did like it a lot. But as a fan and kind of what we do as fans, I find too many holes and I just find too many things that bug me. And that's why I can't say I loved it. I want to. I really, really want to. And I know I was wrong at first saying that, oh, this is going to be crap or whatever. No, it's not crap. It's pretty well made in a lot of respects, but it's maybe like 70% well made, and then the other 30% are these little things that bug me. And, who knows? Maybe other people feel the same way. I'm not sure. I know you and I have talked about it a lot, and I've talked about it to some coworkers and some other friends. It doesn't mean I'm not going to want to see it more. I just don't know if I'm going to be ever as in love with it as I am the first six.
With Star Wars, obviously, you got to remember that it was the first film, and they really were not that confident that, it was going to be anywhere near the hit that it was. So they had to kind of give you a pretty standard ending in terms of, okay, it's the beginning and here's the end.
That might have been the end. It might have made a few hundred.
Yeah, exactly. Once they realized they had a franchise on their hands, then they were freer to be able to give you a traditional cliffhanger ending. This film, even though it's the first of a reboot, if you want to call it, or whatever, they don't mind giving you the cliffhanger because they have a guaranteed money machine and they know that, it's guaranteed. This isn't a one-shot deal.
Yeah, I'm the minority because so many people and families, my brother and his family, he texted me right now. He said, I loved it. He said the Han part, almost brought tears to his eyes. Like, yeah, I know. These are characters we love. And so obviously we're a little more critical of it.
Right.
But for me, being who I am, I didn't have kids to sit there with me and start and forget. I just watched it as if I was still that guy from 30-something years ago, almost 40 years ago. And it just wasn't my cup of tea. But that doesn't mean I know for a fact I'm going to like Rogue One more because that's going to be almost like a heist movie or something like that.
But not only that, but that is more of a standalone film that doesn't require a direct sequel. In other words, this is episode 7, which means there is going to be an episode 8 and an episode 9. So you know that they can't end the story. It's going to continue. Rogue One, like you said, that's a standalone. Even though we know where it takes place, they have to wrap up that story. They can't just leave you hanging because the anthologies are going to go in different directions.
Yeah, I feel in this case, Rogue One is surely going to lead right into A New Hope because that's the whole point of this. The premise is these guys are the ones uncovering and infiltrating to get the stolen plans to the Death Star. And I was talking to friends recently that even if every hero dies at the end of Rogue One, which would almost be unheard of, even if every hero dies, they won because we know what the plans end up doing when Leia when Vader says, we've traced these plans, the transmissions to your ship and so on and so forth, that's really the ending there. Their mission, we know, is a success. And it doesn't give away anything because they could all die, like I said. And it would still be a fantastic movie and completely unexpected because that's what the whole thing is about. Their mission is to succeed even if they die. And we know they do. So it's like, how do we get to that point?
And hopefully they'll take it all the way, like you said, to the edge of the story, butt end against Star Wars. This is one of the little minor pet peeves that I had with Revenge of the Sith was that I was hoping that Revenge of the Sith would go butt end against Star Wars, that they would somehow not only show the delivering of the babies to Owen and Beru.
They left a little too much room again for what
right.
happens,
So it would have been nice.
Yeah,
it would have been nice if it would have ended with a younger Luke. Obviously, you can't have a younger, but somebody, maybe from behind, you see Luke running through the farm and,
And there was talk, I've read recently, there was talk to have a young Han Solo on the Wookiee planet, which may or may not have changed their... It got to the point where there was art about it, but it never got to anything casting, supposedly, or any of that. But the whole thing for us is, I guess we always want more, and I know that's how I am. You always want a little more than they gave you, and we're very critical. So if I take my critique completely out of it and just went and see a movie that could have been fun, yeah, it was fun. If I watch it, like I said, like we do and we're known to do, then I have issues with it. But I do say, I guarantee you, it's not going to be a movie I watch over and over and over again. I still even watch the prequels. Maybe not a couple times a year, but maybe like once every couple years, I'll watch each of the prequel episodes again and find something I like, even though there are things that bother me. I have a feeling I don't think this one will be like that. But hey, there's more movies coming, and that doesn't mean that episode 8 or 9 might not be fantastic, or Rogue One. I don't know how excited I am about the young Han Solo movie. That still is a thorn in my side, I guess, but that's how I felt about Harrison Ford, wanting to die in Jedi and eventually perishing in this movie, too. I don't think it was necessary, and you just don't want your hero to die, no matter what.
Well, for me, the first time... I watched it a standard theater in 3D. It wasn't IMAX. And that's what we talked about last time. The second time I watched it was in an IMAX presentation in 3D at a different theater, completely different theater, another different town. And it was good because, I was a little more relaxed. I wasn't as anxious as I was before trying to absorb everything. So I was able to focus on certain things. And like you said, after going through the books and after even listening to other podcasts and other shows where people were, nitpicking and taking the movie apart into little tiny pieces, I was able to notice certain things. I was looking for things like, we kept talking about, well, they didn't make this toy. Where the hell's this toy? Where's this ship? Where's that ship? Okay, there it is. I see it. Now I see it. It's there. I'm happy now. I did notice that, from the director's perspective and especially from the editing side, how Han Solo avoids the question of who Rey is, when he's at Maz's castle.
At two different times, you get the when he's talking to her and saying, "Hey, you want to join the crew? I'm looking for a new crew." He kind of knows something or thinks he knows something, and then when Maz, there's a scene that says, "Who's the girl?"
Yeah, who's the girl? And he kind of rolls his eyes or something, and they cut. That's a deliberate avoidance of the issue, as far as I'm concerned. So, there were a couple of little moments like that where they're purposely not giving you that information. The way that he offers her a job, it's so out of character. Why is he so smitten
he's doing
by
it
her?
as if he knows, we got to, I got to keep this particular person.
The other thing I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed it too, and I don't remember it in Star Wars so much, that the acting style, there are certain scenes where it kind of felt almost like a 1940s, 1950s romantic comedy where Finn and Rey are running from the creature, that eating creature, and they're kind of, oh my God, what should we do? Blah, 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 blah. This way of delivering lines fast and kind of funny. I noticed it's like, wow, I wonder if they're doing that on purpose. I wonder if that's like a writing style maybe Kasdan is into or JJ is into or something like that. I did notice those things. Like I said before, I was able to kind of take it in a little easier and kind of kind of savor the scenes, like looking for things and picking out those little details. As you said before, the music really kind of is there in the background. It doesn't really seem to stand up front like in some of these other films. But that was the second time. And believe it or not, I got a third viewing at one point. My dad was visiting, and I was like, hey, I got an idea. Let's go see Star Wars. And the third time, I saw it in a standard non-3D theater. So I think I've seen the film in all its possible combinations of presentation.
Sure.
Didn't bother me at all. The fact that it wasn't 3D, it didn't matter. There was a huge screen. It wasn't IMAX, but it was a huge screen, and that's really all you really need. You got to watch it on at least a big screen.
Yeah, I didn't mention the site that I found on my phone. That was basically just to listen to it while I was at work or killing some time. The picture was atrocious. At some points, it didn't even sync up, but I didn't care because I could hear things, and there were things I could see. I'm sure most of our audience who were looking for it have found it as well. It's a fun movie to have. It's just not like when you put it up against these other ones, that's where it falls apart for me. I do have to say, though, that I don't think the 3D did anything for it. Even the second time, there were a couple things I noticed, a Star Destroyer. In the beginning, you notice it when she's going through the Star Destroyer, and then there's a scene of a Star Destroyer, like, facing the screen maybe or something like that. I don't know if I imagined that.
It's coming straight at you, I think, isn't it? Like the point,
that's when
the point is in your face.
Yeah, I said, oh, look at that. That's actually cool. I might have missed that the first time. But the final part of this that I want to say is I may have gotten to the point where I don't want to see it anymore on opening night. I don't want that pressure. I don't want to have to sit there with a crowd. It's like the old thing, like, oh, New Year's Eve is amateur night. It's not quite the same. Fans are fans. Everybody's excited to see the new movie. I just don't want to sit with them to see the movie. I need the ability to sit back, be in my favorite kind of seat situation, not have people waving lightsabers in front of me or behind me and stuff. And that's just me maybe being a little silly, but I don't want to be a part of that anymore. And I guess that's something I have to figure out. Do I want to see it right away with everybody and not have anything spoiled? Or since I basically knew the script in May for a movie that came out in December, that I can wait a couple days or even a couple weeks because anything anybody talks about isn't going to spoil it, and then I can see it on my terms. And that's probably what I have to do going forward, because other than me and you wanting to talk about it the next day, oh my God, blah, 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 like we're little teenagers, it kind of puts a damper on it for me being part of that whole, I got to get in line, I got to do this, I got to do that. There really was no line for me in the preview night's IMAX presentation, but it still was the anticipation of having to go in there and having a packed house. So, who knows? Maybe all that thing kind of worked against me, you know?
Well, again, I want to reinstate that because it was a more relaxed environment the second and third time around, I was less picky. I was more willing to overlook the things that we talk about, the little plot details and the why they do this, why they have to do that, why they present this in that manner. It was much easier. Now, a couple of quick little items that have to do with the aftermath of this film. If you go to your Walmart, they already have the display for you can pre-order the DVD, Blu-ray.
Yes, that's true.
And I think it's coming in April.
I think 2 weeks after the movie came out, they had that. You can buy it, and
I think they give you pre-order it, and they're supposed to mail you these little miniature posters of the film, a couple like three different miniature posters.
And Ms. Spence, you mentioned posters. We got our posters, and we got it. What, either cheap or free?
Free. Those were free. That's through Disney Rewards. Unfortunately, they already sold out or they gave them all away.
Yeah, but that was so fantastic that it worked in our favor because we do have all these dopey points that I never knew what I would use it for.
Yep.
And these posters were going for $200 or $300 on eBay for most of the summer, or most of the time since the poster was unveiled. It might have only been like a couple months. But I did not want to spend that kind of money. But I really, as a poster collector and having something from every Star Wars movie, legitimate, I wanted to have it. And I'm glad I got it. And I got it for free thanks to you.
That was a freebie. That was the one sheet, the traditional one sheet. Then they also had for free, but you had to pay the shipping, which was $3, and we ordered it. It's a smaller one of an artist's rendition of Rey and BB-8. And if you wanted to spend extra money, they would ship you the other 3 or 4 of them. Then the other thing I forgot to mention, when I saw it in the IMAX theater, they gave away a free poster there too, which it's one of 4. Again, the one
I never got that. I didn't go on that particular day.
The one we got was it's kind of like a greenish poster of I think Poe and X-Wings or something like that. And again, it's an artsy kind of thing. The other thing I was able to pick up also through DisneyMovieRewards.com is a set of free two-sided posters that are the promotional posters with the actor's face and either a gun or a lightsaber or a staff right in front of their face, the close-up of the face. Well, what they have is they have 3 two-sided ones. So you got the traditional poster on one side, you have Rey, you have Finn, you have Kylo Ren, you have Han Solo, and Leia. And again, those were free. Keep an eye on those things because you get free points by just going to the movies. You get free points by buying the DVDs or the Blu-rays. Even some of the soundtracks, you get free points. And this stuff is free, which is fantastic. One more final item I want to mention is that another way that this movie is kind of staying with us, especially with our family, and the fact that because I'm living in Florida now, and because we are going to Disney so much, I used to always say Epcot was my favorite park because of the rides and stuff. But now it's Disney Studios because there's so much. And don't get me wrong, compared to before, they already had Star Tours and stuff like that. But now Star Tours has the Force Awakens part of the experience, the adventure, the 3D ride.
That probably is pretty exciting, especially for your kids.
That's cool. You have so much merchandise, which is a little overwhelming at some point, and they are slowly adding more and more places having to do with Star Wars. They have a thing called Launch Bay where you can see the props and all this other stuff. Some of them are replicas, obviously, character meet and greets, little films they show at little side areas, and they are already taking down so much stuff and building new stuff. So I'm going to definitely keep everybody informed of all the little, because if it's Star Wars, I'm all over it. The other thing that just happened was ABC had a 60th anniversary special for Disneyland. But in this special, they were also promoting all these new things that are coming to all the parks. Disneyland, Disney World, the international parks, especially Disney Shanghai. And for this particular thing, Harrison Ford even participated in it.
And that's pretty neat that he's participating in it. This whole new Harrison Ford has emerged as a result. He may be gone, but he's not gone because I think he had a good experience and he likes being part of it again.
Which is cool. Well, some people are also speculating, and again, I don't want to speculate too much because there's so much speculation that he might even be
something else
in the future films as a memory. It could be a flashback.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be in the entire movie, but maybe, if Rey turns out to be somebody that's connected to Han Solo, there could be a flashback of him talking to Leia, hey Leia, what are we going to do with Rey,
I'd be less inclined to want him to be like a Ben Kenobi Force
No,
Ghost.
no,
I'd be more inclined to have him be part of flashbacks or other scenes like that would be great because then he's still part of it.
And then he would shut me up. He would shut me up in terms of saying, that I'm resentful of the fact that he had to die because of his contractual, obligations or whatever. This would shut me up, and I would love to have somebody shut me up because of that. And they were highlighting, some of the new attractions that are coming. More specifically, they were talking about the additions. This is nothing new to us, but they kind of went a little bit deeper into it. The additional lands that they're building. They're expanding the Star Wars area. And they actually showed us not only their concept art, which you've seen before, but they showed us kind of how a ride would be kind of working, where you're going through these different indoor settings and you're seeing stormtroopers and stuff like that. So that was kind of neat too. And I know there's going to be a Millennium Falcon ride in the works. Well, anyway, listen, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for giving me the second viewing information, because people like us, this type of movie is so big and so important to us that you can't just do a one quick glance at it. After once or twice, we were talking just on the phone, and at one point you were flipping to the opposite side and then back to the other side. So everybody's, views keep changing back and forth, depending on how invested you are in the film.
Yeah, I can definitely admit to you that I'm a little wishy-washy in why. There are things that bug me, but I don't hate them. I still like the movie. It's just not in my, top 10 or 20 or 30. Just,
Well, thanks again, James. I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank both our co-hosts today, Steve Vivona and James, for giving us their 2 cents on Star Wars The Force Awakens. And I'd like to thank you guys for listening as usual, and we will see you here next time at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
everything about me, what I've seen, we all need to run.
Hope is not lost today. We must face them. Fight them.
Sure you're up for this? Hell no.
Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Stop.